So my name is Joe Kava. I'm the Global Vice President of Data Centers at Google, and I hope to talk to you a little bit about something slightly different than most of the conversations today. So rather than public policy and renewable energy on the generation side, I'd like to discuss what we have been doing on the consumer side and how we've been building our renewable energy practice at Google. I'd also like to acknowledge and thank our hosts for putting on such an amazing forum. I'm incredibly honored to be here, and Google is very proud to be the recipient of the Zayed Future Energy Award, so thank you very much. Okay, let's first talk about our global footprint. We operate a global network of data centers in 15 locations. We have our global network is available in POP locations, points of presence, in over 100 countries. We have 13 cloud regions and 36 zones available. And we currently have a physical infrastructure presence in 182 countries around the world. And for perspective, the UN currently recognizes 193 countries, so apparently I still have a little bit of work to do to get those last 11 countries in our network also. And why are we building out such a global network? Well, first, our products are available for our users 24/7 around the world in a highly reliable and available infrastructure. We have 7 of our products that currently have over 1 billion users individually. Those 7 products are listed here, but they're products that we all use every day. Search and Maps and YouTube and Gmail. So we needed to build this infrastructure just to serve our global base of users and customers. And our vision at the time of starting Google from our founders was very clear, that they had the vision of where Google was going to go and how big it was going to be, and the only way to do that in a responsible manner for our planet was to do that with sustainability as a core value and to make sure that energy efficiency was at the heart of all of our operations. So sustainability and innovation go hand in hand at Google. We have been the world's leaders in creating a sustainable and a highly efficient compute infrastructure around the world. And we take this as part of our core value. So when we assess the best way to build and to operate a data center, we look for the best technology available on the market. However, oftentimes there's not a product on the market that meets our needs when it comes to efficiency or performance or our price targets. So in that case, we're not afraid to innovate and to take the risk to develop our own products. Much like in infrastructure like this, the air conditioning system consumes most of the energy going into operating a building like this. It's the same thing in data centers. So in data centers, you have 2 components. You have the energy, the electricity coming in that operates the servers that is actually doing work, and you have the energy that is used for the air conditioning system and the power distribution, everything else. All of that is considered overhead, and we want to minimize that overhead. The air conditioning systems that were available on the market when we started designing our data centers were not as efficient as we needed them to be, so we have created our own highly efficient cooling systems that meet the needs of our infrastructure. And this is one example of the cooling systems. And we look at optimizing across our entire stack. So whether it's in our own servers, people were wondering, why did Google develop and design our own servers? Well, at the time that we started our computer operations, these servers that met our performance or price targets or our efficiency objectives were not available on the commercial market. The components necessary were available, but none of the manufacturers had put them together in a way that met the efficiency targets that we have set for ourselves because the industry wasn't demanding it. So we went to these extraordinary efforts to create our own because we really couldn't buy what we needed. Now, today, we're one of the top 3 server manufacturers in the world. Okay, and the same goes on our cooling technologies. As I mentioned, air conditioning takes about, of the overhead in a data center, air conditioning is responsible for about 70% of that overhead. So we want to minimize that. Water is still one of the best ways to cool the heat in a data center, but we don't want to use potable water. Potable water for drinking and for fueling our economy is such a precious natural resource that we would rather invest in other technologies. So we've pioneered technologies in seawater cooling, gray water recycling, even using industrial canal water and cleaning it just so that it's good enough for industrial use. In our systems, it doesn't have to be the quality of drinking water. It just has to be good enough to run in our cooling systems. And we really want to have a very simple model of sustainability. So for us, it's really 3 easy steps. 1, we believe that the best energy saved is the energy not consumed in the first place. So we want to be ruthlessly efficient with our operations. And 2, we want to rely on renewable energy for as much of our operations as we can. And we'd like to be able to purchase that directly on the local markets. In some areas of the world we operate, that is not possible. So I'll explain how we go about our power purchase agreements. And 3, for anything that we can't buy renewable energy for directly, we want to offset through high quality carbon offsets. Today, Google is the world's largest corporate purchaser of renewable energy. And I'll talk about the construct of those PPAs in just a moment. When it comes to efficiency, Google's data centers are the world's leaders. A typical Google data center uses half of the energy of a traditional enterprise data center on a like-for-like basis. So if they were both the same size, the Google data center uses just half of the energy of a traditional data center. As a matter of fact, the energy required of a traditional data center to power their email and office applications, for that same amount of energy, Google can power 80 companies hosted on our cloud for those same G Suite applications. And as I mentioned, the measure of efficiency in data centers is a very simple term. The energy used to power the servers, which does the work, divided by the total energy, and you want that number, that overhead ratio to be as low as possible. In 2008, we started publishing our energy consumption, and we make this public every quarter, and we have since 2008. We are the world's leaders in this, and you can see that since about 2013, we've been achieving an annual overhead component of only 12%. And today, the industry average is still over 60%. So we're far more efficient than the rest of the industry on average. And further, I've been implementing AI systems in my data centers now to find even more efficient ways of operating them and further saving more energy. And as I mentioned, Google is the world's largest corporate purchaser of renewable energy, and not by a little, but by a long measure. In 2017, we reached a major milestone for the company. In Q3 of 2017, we announced that by the end of 2017, we will have purchased enough renewable energy to account for 100% of our worldwide operations, data centers, and all of our office building, all of our overhead entirely. That's just about 3 gigawatts of renewable energy purchased, and this makes us by far the world's largest corporate purchaser of renewable energy. We also celebrated another very special milestone. In 2017, we celebrated 10 years as a carbon neutral company. So since 2007, Google has been carbon neutral. As I mentioned, we achieved 100% renewable energy for our operations. And moving along, I know that we're waiting on the UN Secretary General, so I won't spend too long. But renewable and sustainable goes further at Google than just energy. It goes into, as I mentioned, our water programs, but also a circular economy. Traditionally, our economies have been built on a model of taking natural resources from the world, making products, and then wasting or disposing of those products at the end of the life cycle. But we believe that there's far more that we could be doing, and we are. Last year, 52% of all of the components that went into building our servers were recycled components, and 36% of all of our servers that we put into production last year were remanufactured, which means that components taken from other servers that came out of service were rebuilt, reconfigured, and put back in as new servers. So instead of just taking and disposing of all this e-waste, we're recycling, reusing, and reducing our overall consumption. So to quickly wrap up, our data centers are the world's leading energy-efficient data centers, consuming just roughly 50% of what a traditional data center of the like size would consume. Compared to 5 years ago, our data centers now provide over 3.5 times as much compute power per watt of energy. Over just 5 years, more than 3.5 times the amount of compute per watt of energy. And 36% of our servers and systems are remanufactured last year in our data centers. So really, we take this as a holistic approach. We think about sustainability and climate change as an imperative. It's not a nice to have, it's a must do. It's not just good for the world, it's good for business. It gives us predictability into our future energy costs. We sign long-term power purchase agreements. So I don't know what the underlying fuel costs of traditional energy are going to be in the future, but with my long-term power purchase agreements, I know exactly what my energy costs are going to be years into the future. That makes good business sense. So it's not just good for the world, it's good for business. With that, I'd like to thank you all very much. It's been my honor to be here, and shukran.